As the president fiddles, people are dying.
Do you think there is blood on the president's hands, considering the slow response? Or is that too harsh of a criticism?
I think that's a little too harsh. He should stop thinking out loud and start thinking deeply.
Another day, another round of criticism for President Trump. Is the media doing an objective job of asking relevant questions? Are partisan leaders giving the administration a fair shake? Let's discuss with Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume. Brit, good to see you tonight.
Thank you, Shannon.
Okay, so a piece in the American Thinker under the headline of the unbearable pettiness of the Washington press corps says this: every question from the press corps is meant to impugn the president's handling of this global event. Each one of them wants to catch him in a mistake, so the clip of their questions will go viral. Britt, what do you make of the coverage?
Well, I do think that some in the White House press corps in particular conspicuously not to include our own John Roberts, who I think has played this very straight and very ably. But too many of them are still trying to, play the old game that you do of asking these questions intended to show that something that Trump said previously was inconsistent with something he said. That's fine for normal times. These are not normal times. Those briefings that are being held at the White House are really a fount of information. Some of it's provided by Trump himself, although he spends a lot of time bragging and saying what a great job they're doing and getting into tussles with reporters who ask him annoying questions. But even from him, there's real information. Mike Pence does a good job of summarizing what's being done in the government and to help the states. And then Drs. Fauci and Birx have been excellent in interpreting the data that are coming in day by day and giving us a sense of how this pandemic is spreading, what's the good news, what's the bad news. And I think people are hungry for that. I mean, I'm a political journalist, right? You'd think I would be the one who is most absorbed with the politics of all this. But what I'm interested in, just as a citizen watching these briefings day after day, is what do they tell us about the virus? What do they tell us about the pandemic? What do they tell us about how New York is doing and what its death rates and its hospitalization rates? What is all that stuff telling us? I think a lot of reporters aren't asking questions about that stuff, and they're missing something.
Well, and listen, the president likes to spar with them. He is game and ready to do it, but he's also taking on this idea that Governor Cuomo, in some corners, is gaining rapidly as someone who could somehow magically be the Democrats' nominee. The president not afraid to troll a little bit with that. Here's what he said.
Now, if he's going to run, that's fine. I wouldn't mind running against Andrew. I know Andrew for a long time. I wouldn't mind that. But I'll be honest, I think it'd be a better candidate than Sleepy Joe.
The New York Times, under the headline, what the Cuomo 2020 fantasy says about 2020 reality, says this: the Cuomo flirtation, such as it is, seems most instructive for what it says about those drawn to it, reviving a persistent trope among Trump-era Democrats, the romanticizing of prospective party saviors, even at this point in the nominating calendar. And there are new polls out that Democrats still have serious questions about Biden. 15% of Bernie Sanders supporters say they'll go, if Biden turns out to be the guy, they're going to go over and vote for Trump. I mean, it sounds like Democrats are still looking for that one person they think can be the best match against President Trump.
Well, I think another reason for that, Shannon, is that since his quite sharp debate performance in his last round with Bernie Sanders, Biden's been struggling, and he's been off the campaign trail because everybody is, and he's been doing these pieces out of a home studio in his house. And he's had some seriously awkward moments doing that. And he doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a role. He can't get up and do what Cuomo, for example, is doing, which is to brief about the efforts that are being made in his bailiwick to deal with the issue. And Cuomo, who can be quite eloquent at times, has been philosophizing about this whole matter and so on. And he's been kind of at the top of his game. And it's not hard to understand why Democrats, worried about Biden, worried about his age, worrying about his evident senility at times, wouldn't look at young Andrew Cuomo and say, man, I wish he were our horse. The mechanics of it, though, as the New York Times editorial suggests, are pretty hard to imagine. I mean, we're going to have a convention. There are going to be delegates, whether it's a virtual convention or an actual convention, it remains to be seen. But, the candidates who have amassed the delegates in the primary process are going to be the ones with people voting for him in that convention. And if you don't have any delegates, you don't have a lot of leverage. What would have to happen would be for Biden to withdraw for some reason, and Biden's delegates, and perhaps some of Sanders's as well, would have to swing their support to the last-minute candidacy of Andrew Cuomo. It's not impossible, but it's highly unlikely.
Yeah, a lot of interesting numbers in the Washington Post ABC News poll. And they come on the day that Bernie reassures his followers he is not dropping out. Could make things very interesting. Brit Hume, thank you always for your time. Good to see you.
Okay, thank you, Shannon.